not having a website, not having our names on Google to be searched. We just started compiling lists of people that we envisioned to be a part of this dream that we had in building the business. And we were able to very quickly gain traction. So easier said than done, right? It sounds like, okay, so how did you do that? So what we did is we took lists of the most innovative companies in fashion. Like we took Fast Company magazine, a ton of different magazines, did some research on who those companies were, and we started cold emailing the founders and presidents of these companies. I know that it sounds very intimidating, right? Let's say you want to reach the brand, as an example, Tommy Hilfiger. It sounds crazy to think I'm going to send Tommy an email, but what we found is when you have the right message with the right purpose and you're coming in with the right intention and you're giving value rather than just seeing what's in it for you, people do respond to that and people want to be a part of something that, has something bigger to it, not just, an event, but what does this event bring into the fashion industry? And then they want to be a part of it. So the biggest thing that I found in building this company and building this global ecosystem that we have today is that just honing in on what your message is, and most importantly, why you're doing what you're doing, and having that why resonate to the person that you're reaching out to. That's the best way to really reach anyone and to have them want to be a part of what you're creating. So with that being said, after starting this business 2, 3 months in, starting to get a lot of the big names like the Googles, IBM, Tommy Hilfiger, Kenneth Cole, United Nations, all of these companies that came on board to work with us, not knowing who we were, just an email that we were sending out to them and them saying, yes, this sounds amazing. I want to be a part of it. 7 years later, we now have had 1,500 speakers all over the world, some of the biggest brands. We rang the bell at NASDAQ last year, and it just evolved to a place that I never even imagined starting 7 years ago, not having any contacts and building everything from zero. So it's really been a dream, but it's also been a dream that we've worked toward with the right message, the right intention, the right purpose. So with that being said, and thank you, Larry, for turning on your camera. I love seeing all of you. Um, so with that being said, I would love to, what I wanted to do here today is I wanted to answer questions. I wanted to find out, all of you here, what it is that you're looking to achieve with your messaging. And I'm going to read the chat box because I feel like I don't want to just talk at you. I want to speak with you. And I want us to be able to come out of this, with answers to something that you can take and you can move forward with, right? And put into action. So just reading here, Lori, nice to meet you again. We have, I'd love to hear more ways to get my name and work out and push my company further to connect with the community. So, Larry, would you mind unblocking your mic and telling me a little bit about what you're doing, what your company is about?
Absolutely. Hi there.
Nice to meet you.
So, I have a performing arts company, and we do productions and events and things like that where we bring the community together to create productions with original scripts and music and things like that, where people within the company that may not be able to use their talents otherwise, or even if they do, collectively, we purposefully create events for different causes like human trafficking. We're doing
Um,
one coming up that's about adoption and foster care. We've done diabetes, a lot of different things just to bring situations that may not be fun to hear about. I kind of call it edutainment, where we create it where
I
it's
love that.
education, but it's also entertainment. So with that, yeah.
I love that. And that's, first of all, congratulations. I love you have such like a big cause behind what you do, and you can tell you're very passionate about it. So I love it. So how long ago did you start your company?
The nonprofit started, the dance part of it has been over 10 years, but the nonprofit part started in the pandemic, like right in
Okay.
when that was happening in 2020. So it's been almost 5 years now.
Okay. And what have you found to be the biggest challenge in getting it out further than what you have it out now?
I think just trying to find the right methods to do it, especially if something isn't your niche, like marketing might not really be my thing. So
Yeah.
thinking through how to do it, the creative part, that's the easy part for me, but trying to figure out how to manage like the business part, still get the things out, but then yet still be creative, have the time to be creative is a
Yeah.
little challenging for me.
Okay. And have you put yourself, let's say, in the forefront, your image, who you are, your story, or are you just leading with what the not-for-profit does? Or are you kind of part of the branding? Do people know you?
So here's the thing. I know that is a challenge of mine. I can talk very highly of everybody else and everyone else things, and anyone that knows me will tell you I'm not very good at bragging about myself and stuff that I've done. So I've done more of putting the organization, the company out there, but not really using me as part of that. And maybe that's what I'm here to learn,
Yeah.
to release it.
No, 100%. Well, I'll tell you this. So first, just when you speaking to me about it, outside of the fact that what you're doing is incredible, you have a very good personality that shines through, and you have an amazing energy. And I feel your passion, outside of me being excited just about what you do, I'm getting excited because you're excited. So I think that you definitely have that, let's say, like the je ne sais quoi, right? That people talk about, you have it, right? So I think it's really amazing that if you start to use that, people will start. So people always say, right? People don't buy into products or ideas, they buy into people. And I think, especially nowadays where people want to connect more to something bigger, I think them being able to connect to you and listen to why you've built what you built, and then on top of it, what you've built is so incredible. It's just like a winning combination. And I say this because when we started Fashion Ovation 7 years ago, I became the face. And at first, like I'm a little like, I get a little bit shy, and, I'm like, I don't know, imposter syndrome, all these things that I was going through in the beginning. But then I realized that because like what you seem to be, and I could read that from you. I'm a very transparent and open and honest person. So I think people, they loved what we were doing, but they really loved my transparency and honesty. And they felt like for them, it was something that was unique, especially in an industry like fashion. So for them, it was like, okay, this girl is really doing it because she loves it. She doesn't have a hidden agenda. She has no ego. And I feel that from you as well. So I think in building me, people were able to resonate with me, and then they wanted to help me make sure that the company was growing because they liked me first. Does that make sense? So I
Absolutely.
think, yeah, so I believe that that could really push you to great heights. And I also think that because you're doing something where everything has a cause that it stands for, and because we're living in a world where it's far from perfect with all of the things that are happening on a daily basis, I think that you reaching out to people as you and telling them what you're doing, and also bringing in their causes to be able to build a production around it so that they're involved automatically in that way, could be really amazing for you.
Thank you very
Is that?
much. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. I
Yeah, of
appreciate it.
course. I hope it helped. And of course, we're going to talk more, but this is just like what comes to me right away. But I think it's incredible what you're doing, by the way.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Of
very much.
course. Of course. Thank you. And then looking here, so Ariel, solidifying my message. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, Ariel? Or are you talking about what the workshop is about?
No, no, I was also trying to participate.
Yeah.
Um, I
So
think
tell me
for
a little bit
me,
about, yeah.
so I'm in the grant world as well, but I'm an artist first and foremost. I paint murals and I do some graphic design work for certain companies or retail companies. So I've always spent all this time kind of like Lori, um, figuring out how to make other people's messages the right way. But then when I
Mhm.
try to apply those tactics to my own thing, I end up just being at zero and not really going anywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, you know, I don't really know what I don't know, I guess. I've never felt like I've had like a specific message
Yeah.
that is tied to who I am.
Okay. Your artwork, what would you say inspires you to do the art that you do?
Um, Nowadays it's the contrast between how I perceive my family and the things that we went through and um how I grew up versus other people's perception of me, I guess, and then I try to channel that through the work. And then a lot of times it's just commentary on society.
Okay. And have you ever shared those personal things about yourself and your artwork and tying those two together with people, with the community?
I have in the sense of like a gallery or
Okay.
sometimes we'll do like mural dedications, and we'll have like a get together. Um, but in recent years, it's mostly been kind of facilitating those things.
Yeah.
And I can't really say I have like a company, I guess, that is uh, tailored towards that or specifically that's what we do all the time, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think, it's interesting. So I feel like there's an artist that automatically comes to mind. His name is Jason Naylor. He's based in New York. And what I'm like hearing from you, and I think what inspires you, I mean, so many, right? So many people can relate to that. So I think it's always like, okay, you have your beautiful, I would love to see your artwork, but let's say you have your murals that you do your artwork. And then I think the most important thing is when people see it, everyone is going to interpret it as something. But if they have a way to know kind of like what inspires you to have created that, and then they can relate to that story, I think that's like I think that's the common factor with everything that I see is whether it's art, whether it's fashion, whether it's, anything. Like I feel like people are more drawn to like something or support something or buy something if they see themselves in it. And I know it's not an easy thing to do to be vulnerable
Yeah.
and overshare sometimes, but I think that's what's so beautiful about artists, right? Is that you are someone, usually what I know of artists is very like open, very they want to share, they want to share with the world what they're feeling. So I think the more you can speak to that in a way, and I feel like also social media. So going back to Jason Naylor, so he was Mormon, and then he decided to leave the religion, and then he became a drug addict, and now he's been clean for I don't know how many years, and all of his artwork is about love and inspiration and color. Even though he's always in black, everything he does is like
Yeah.
pure color, right? And he started sharing those stories through videos and through traveling and speaking at events. And then, people just started engaging with him because of who he is as an artist. And then seeing his art, you go, ah, and then you feel so much more. So I think that that's like the biggest thing. And then I think your community will just come to you, organically that
So
way.
it sounds more like it's less about the art and more about sharing about myself.
I feel like it is because I think art, obviously, just looking at art is beautiful. But I think if you can look at something and you could see yourself in what you're looking at, or if you can imagine people that you love in what you're looking at, I think it just connects you that much more. So
Hmm.
I think it's a beautiful thing to see. And of course, do it in a way that feels organic to you, because then it's going to feel organic to those that are listening to your story and seeing your art. But I think that really goes a very long way. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So thank you for that, by the way. And then I see here Julie Palmer. So, how to attract the right people as collaborators. So, I love this question because this is something that we did a lot of at Fashion Innovation. Because, to build a company and to get it going, we needed collaborators, sponsors, and companies that believed in us and saw that they could be a fit with what we were doing. So there's a few things that I think are super important to do with this. And nice to meet you, Julie, by the way.
Hi, sorry, my video while I'm cooking. I'm sort of multitasking, so.
So I was just curious first, can you tell me what company you have or what you work with, or tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I don't, well, I do have a company, but that's not what we're talking about today. So I'm a musician, and I have been looking for people to make music with, and it seems like everybody's either, like, oh, they're like, oh, yeah, you're a great fit, but I'm too busy. I already got projects, you know, or yeah, sure, let's do something, but then it's the wrong fit, right? So like, I'm just trying to say yes to as many things as I can, do as many different things as I can, and meet as many different people as I can, and I guess it's working-ish, but it's quite slow, and sometimes it can be kind of frustrating to try to establish relationships with people, and then it's like, oh, well, that was a dud, you know?
Okay, and you said music, right?
Yeah.
Music. Okay. So I'm not going to say I'm an expert in all fields and industries, but I will say this. I think collaborators, it has to be, and I'm going to say this word a lot. I'm going to say the word connection a lot. But that's really what, it all boils down to at the end. It's connections and relationships, right? So I think one thing that I did a lot of in building the company that, we built, is I really put a lot of time and effort into building relationships. Even if the person said, this is not the right fit for me right now, I maintain that relationship. So, what I mean by that is, I would, let's say most of who I wanted to contact, were, let's say, in Miami. I would take a trip out for 3 days. I would just say, hey, let's just get a drink, let's get lunch. I would go to see them with like no expectations, not asking anything of them. I would find out, what events or what, let's say in music, where they're performing, show up, take videos, promote, tell people about the artist that you want to collaborate with because you enjoy their music on your social platforms, not asking anything in return, and just really like, making sure that you show them how much you value what they're doing. The second thing is, and again, this is not a field that I'm very like, let's say very knowledgeable in, but I would say I enjoy music. I enjoy listening to music. So I would say, maybe, and I'm sure you do this already, but when you're listening to someone where you're like, I'd love to collaborate with this person, I would say that you can maybe start to hear what they're doing. And maybe even if your collaboration that you're thinking of for your music is not exactly what they do, but you see that, you want to bring in a little bit of what you do to what they're doing, maybe start off by creating something that's more geared toward what they're doing. And then the second project, they would come to you, So I think it's a lot about giving before you receive. I think that's like a really big key in collaborations. And I would say the third thing is, the way that I would always find my collaborators is through going to spaces and events and conferences and, let's say places in general that I knew that they would be at, and just also find out about other people that are similar to those collaborators that I wanted, that maybe they would be a fit and they would have the time. And the last thing I would say, it's a numbers game. It sounds crazy and I know it's super like mind numbing sometimes, but it is a numbers game in the sense that everyone is busy. But if let's say you can get a list of 50 people, even if there's 3 that you want, but there's 47 that could be similar to those 3, just sending a message. And sometimes the first message, you won't get a reply. The second message, you won't get a reply. The third message, you won't get a reply. But keep emailing that person because what they're going to see is that you really want them, and persistence goes such a long way. Like, it's funny, but I always had like, people always said to me, they're like, Jordana, you're very aggressive, but you're pleasantly aggressive. So they were like, if you were to go one step further, I would be like, leave me alone, but you stay right in that line. So it's about knowing how to dance in that line and just staying persistent with the same message, and just showing them outside. So it's like, it's those 4 things together that I would say can really help you, get more of those collaborations going. Does that help?
It does. No, and it definitely identifies areas for me to improve. I think, just like you said, like, if I reach out, it feels very high stakes, right? And then if they say no, I'm like, well, they said no. So it's a no. And it feels like I am bugging them, but yeah, I like what you said about sort of maintaining an openness to just do things with people casually that's not necessarily directly collaborating. It's like, well, maybe I'll see you at a show, or maybe, whatever, right? Like, we're around, right? We live in the same town, it's not that big. and
Yeah.
just kind of keeping myself around to be around. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's funny. So they said no, so I'll take the no. It's funny to me because I remember specifically there's one story where I was going after the fashion director of Vogue that started Vogue with Anna Winter. Her name is Tone Goodman. I really wanted her to speak at our event. I sent her an email, no response. Second email, no response. Third email, she finally replied, but she's like, I'm busy. I kept, how are you? How are your kids? Oh my God, I saw you went to the Hamptons. It looks amazing. I was like every day, like, almost writing to her every other day, let's say, but really persistent. Finally, she gets in a call with me one day and we're speaking, and she's like, you really want me to speak at your event, huh? And when she said that, something inside of me, I felt it coming. I was like, don't get emotional, but I did because I wanted it so badly. And I started crying on the call. And I'll never forget, my business partner was behind me and he's like, are you crying right now? Stop crying. He's just not going to take you seriously. But I couldn't stop. But after I cried, she goes, you know what? I'll speak at your event, because she saw the genuinity and like that I really wanted her, how much it meant to me. And from that day forward, not only did she speak at my event, but to this day, she invites me to all of her events. We became actually friends. I could say we're friends. We text, we talk. So that's what I mean. It's just being unapologetically you and just showing people how badly you want it. I think it goes such a long way, and not being afraid. The no we already have, right? So why not ask, right? The worst that can happen is a no. And if we don't try, that's already there. So I would say just go for it. But I would say again, just build that relationship, become friends. And it does take time, but at the end, so much more can even come than just the collaboration, right? If you really solidify that friendship. So I would say that can go a long way.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Of course, of course. Thank you so much. So I wanted to, so nice to see you all, voice. Thank you for turning your camera on.
I had to figure it out. No, it's simple,
So
but I had to figure it out.
no, it takes time. Trust me. Technology is great, but sometimes I get on things and I'm still like figuring it out too. Um, so I wanted to talk to you guys, and if anybody else hasn't asked a question, by the way, about your messaging or anything, or the ones that did ask questions have other questions, please do in the chat. And I would love to, keep having this conversation going. But I wanted to talk a little bit about cold emailing, if it's something you guys think would be, interesting to learn about. So I think, cold emails, we get junk emails all the time, right? And we all just sometimes look at it and just delete. And I think the reason it's so easy to delete things that we don't know who it's coming from or what the message inside it is because we're just like, oh, they're going to try to sell me something, or, just, so it's very easy to just do that. So when we're doing these emails, whether it's to musicians we want to collaborate with, or getting our art in galleries, or creating a show, with your production team, and you're like, I want to email this person, but they don't know me. Why would they open my email? So the things that have worked for what I've done and what I've built, is number one thing is the subject line. The subject line in an email is like so key to someone wanting to open that email. A lot of times, if you just write something, even if it's something that's like nice and it's not salesy, sometimes they won't open it because they don't know who it's coming from. So what we've always done is put the name of the person that you're reaching out to in the subject somewhere. So, let's say, and I'm going to use some examples that correlate to what you guys have asked so that you guys can implement it. But let's say, Julie with music, if you write in the subject line the name of a song that that artist has produced, right? And say something like, name of song dash, collaboration opportunity asterisk or something like that, right? The person automatically will see that and it'll be the specific name of a song that they've written or performed. So they're going to say, okay, this person really knows my music. They want to collaborate with me. This is not just a mass email. So that works. Same thing with, trying to see here, just going back to the industries. But like Lori, with you, with the production, that you do and the causes and things. When you're reaching out to someone you don't know, maybe, writing the name of what the cause is on the subject of the email. And then maybe like a word or two that can be specific to that person that you're writing that email to. So the subject line, a lot of times what we make as a mistake is we mass email a cold email, because the numbers game thing is a real thing that I mentioned. But then we don't think about personalizing each subject line. We just personalize the message in the email. But it's actually kind of a misconception, because what really works is if you moderate each subject line is specific to, they're going to open the email. Once they open the email, never, ever, ever attach anything to the email. If they open an email and there's an attachment, automatic, they're going to be like, it's spam, or it's going to give me a virus. They don't know who you are. They're not going to open it. So never attach anything. I would say the third thing is whatever message you have in that email, super short. The shorter, the better. Less is more. If you go into like a whole story, especially people that are busy, they're just gonna look and they're gonna like read the first two lines. This is one thing I found, which is really interesting. This is a really big lesson that I learned. We've written emails to Mark Cuban, to like, I don't know, a president of Shopify, to all of these people that really have no time. And we send them this long email. This is in the beginning before we learned. And the first two lines is what they read. And I know this because the last few parts of the email is where I ask the question, and what they reply to me just has to do with those first two lines. And it used to frustrate me. I would say, did they read the email? So they didn't, right? Because they don't have the time. So really like 3-4 sentences. It could be like, hi, blank. My name is, I'm writing this email because, as you saw in the subject line, this interests me. Short line of what interests you. I would like just 15 minutes of your time. I know you're busy being a thought leader in this space, but just 15 minutes of your time I'd really appreciate, because I'm building something and I think that you can inspire me to go the long haul. People love compliments. So when you give them a compliment, when you show them the value that they bring to you, when you mention that they're a thought leader in the space, every thought leader who's a true thought leader wants to give back. You keep it short. Subject line, like I mentioned, always change it to make it specific to them. No attachments. I would love actually for all of you to create an email like this, and even after this, send it to me and then send it out and then get back to me with what the response rate was, because I can almost guarantee you it works every time. And that's how the whole Fashion Innovation was built, all on cold emails. So, I'm a testament to that those things really work. And I'd love, do you all have questions on cold emails? Have you tried it? What have you felt about them? I'd love to get something from you guys as well on that. Anybody can jump in. Alvoice, have you ever done cold emailing?
Let me see. I don't think I have.
No.
No.
What do? Do you mind me asking?
Like if I'm putting a show together, I make clothes. I'm a fashion designer and jewelry
Okay.
designer.
Amazing. Okay. And what's the style of clothes and jewelry that you make?
How do I describe it? I make all type of clothing and stuff, but my specialty is no buttons, no zippers, no patterns, one of a
Oh,
kind.
I love that. And do you sell in
Jewelry.
stores or online?
I had a boutique, selling boutique. I do fashion shows and events. I haven't put
Okay.
things in stores or anything yet. That's something I'm thinking about, it putting things online.
Okay. Very cool.
Mhm.
And okay, you have social media that you showcase your stuff in?
Pardon me?
Do you showcase your stuff on social media? Do you have like Instagram, Facebook?
I have those things, but Lord, I have them. I do. But
Yeah.
I'm not the greatest with all that. I'll send out like
Okay.
invitations to an event. I'll do all that kind of stuff and looking for sponsors for my event.
Okay.
But I have to get better with my technology. I told you it took me a while to cut my camera on.
Well, I can tell you that, with the cold emails, when it comes to buyers of stores and sponsors for your show, I think like, because you do something that's so unique and one of a kind, no zippers, no buttons. That's amazing. I'm actually really intrigued now to see it. Just that alone, what you said, if you send an email out with a subject line of no zippers, no button fashion, that already intrigues, I think, anybody to see what you do. So I think, thinking about that, and you don't have to have social media and all that, but just to be able to get some emails and, companies that you're interested in. And you actually just brought a point to my mind that I think is super, super important. So when you cold email a company that you want to collaborate with or work with, most of us have a tendency of thinking, okay, I'm going to email the executive assistant to the president, or I'm going to email the marketing director, and then they'll get it to the person that makes the decisions. So that's a really big misconception. So every cold email that we've sent from day one, when we didn't even have a website, nothing, no one knew who Jordana Guimarães was, zero. We always found the email of the president or CEO and emailed them directly every single time. Because what happens is when you go to anybody lower than the decision maker in the company, even if they think what you're doing is great and they're like, oh, this is a great idea, they're afraid to go to the CEO or president because they don't know if they're going to get in trouble, because sometimes they're like, oh, but are they going to like it? And if they don't, they're going to say, why are you wasting my time? And then they don't show it to them at all. And then they'll email you back and say, it's not the right time. We're not interested. But the CEO or president, if they found out about it, they could actually be very interested, but it never got to them. So it's always really, really important to do that. And there's many platforms online, which I'm happy to share after this. And I'm going to share a deck with Ariel and the team. But there are websites that are legal where you can find anybody that has an email address, you could find their email address. So just to give you examples, let me think of some. So Susan Rockefeller, Mark Cuban, Tommy Hilfiger, Diane von Furstenberg, all of these individuals that have now been a part of my community, I found their emails on these websites. And it was just a cold email directly to them, to all of these individuals, and they all emailed back. And it was kind of fun, crazy story, but even the first time I emailed Diane von Furstenberg in person to her, I was like, she's never going to reply. And she actually replied within like 24 hours from her iPad. And she's like, love from Paris. I'm on my iPad. It was like, I actually took a photo and I have it saved on my phone, because when it happened, I started screaming and everyone was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I'm like, she emailed me personally, because it's such an exciting moment, But it happened because, I went directly to her. It's something that touched her. And then once the CEO or president likes your idea, then it trickles down to whoever needs to be a part of that process. So that's something else that I wanted to bring up. Just because as we were talking, voice, I just thought fashion is like my thing. So I just thought about that, as something else that I wanted to share with you guys. Does anybody else have any questions on emails or just cold reaching out to people? No? Okay. So now another part of this that I wanted to talk about, Julia's typing. Let's wait to see what she has. I love that you guys are all so like creative and artistic, and we have musicians and artists and performers, and it's amazing. Let's see here. Okay. Do you recommend group emails and WhatsApp formats? So WhatsApp, I feel like it's very personal, right? Sorry, go ahead. Are you saying something, Julie? Okay. So we'll wait for that to come through. But just to start on the group emails. So I think group emails, what app? Okay. All right. So, okay, group emails, MailChimp. So all of these platforms where you could send out all the emails automatically in, they're great, but then it does take away from you being able to adapt each of the subject lines. That's the only thing I would say. And some of them, when you send it, because of the way it's formatted, you can tell it's an email blast. So you just have to be very careful with like which ones you use. I will share some that we've used that are very, it looks like it's really coming always from us personally. I'm happy to share those with you. I just have to like get those links and be able to share it after. But like I said, I'll share after this. I'm going to share a link of these apps that you could use. I'll share a link of where you could find, the decision maker's email address, all of these things I'm going to share with you after. I'll put it in a PDF and share it with Adiel, and he could share it with all of you. But I would say group emails, it's worked sometimes. So I'll give you an example. So we had Pinterest as a company that we partnered with maybe like 2 years ago. And because that company, president at something like Pinterest, a little bit difficult with like the messaging because everyone has a different category within Pinterest. So what we did is we compiled the list of 6 people, 6 C-suites. So like the fashion director, the VP, let's say of product, like, so we had 6 emails and we put everybody into that email. If it's the same company. And then it's good because if one person sees it that likes it, the other doesn't, somebody will reply and then the whole team will get on board when it's a call and things like that. I would say in terms of a group, like if you're emailing various companies, we've done that when we invite people to our events because we have like, let's say 500 to 1,000 guests, right? So we have to mass invite. But what we always do, which this you might already know, but just let's say the email that you're sending it to that's visible to everyone is like your email. The second one is like someone in your team, and then you BCC everyone else. But again, it has to be something more when you're inviting some, a mass group of people to an event or something that's okay. But if it's a message where you're trying to collaborate or get people to really work with you, and it takes time, I know, and it's super tedious, especially when you have a list of 100 companies. But if you take your time and send one by one and change those subject lines, I'm excited for you guys to try that because it's going to go such a long way. So I would say that. Yeah. So thank you for the question, Julie. And let's see, of course, my pleasure. So now what I wanted to talk about a little bit is telling your story. So like who each of you are behind what you do. And I think this has been a really interesting journey for me because, being that we put me as the face of the company from day one. And, I hate saying this because I don't like the way it sounds, but I'll tell you why I'm saying it. After this, if you Google my name, and the reason I say this is because you're going to go through 20 pages on Google of podcasts and articles and stories, and you're going to see how much I've shared of myself. Almost honestly, to a lot of people, some people listen, like let's say my family would listen and go, oh my God, how come you share that? Aren't you embarrassed? Or that's so personal. Why did you share it? But the reason I've always been so open to sharing things about my childhood, about traumas that I've overcome, all these things, and I've gone into detail in some podcasts even. It depends on my mood and how I was feeling during those interviews. But I honestly think, I'm almost positive, that the success that I've had in the industry and the reason I've been able to tap into an industry that's so hard to tap into is because I've been so vulnerable with sharing all of me. And I'm not saying this is for everyone because it does take a lot of courage because of course you're going to get people that are going to love it and you're going to get people that are always going to say something negative about it. But what I found is that a, a lot of people that have worked with me, let's say the big names, they worked with me because, yes, they loved what we were doing with the company. But a lot of them have said to me, I get invited to speak at a lot of events. What you're doing is great. But the reason I really did it was because of you, because when you shared this story, my daughter is going through this, or how did you overcome it? So I could tell my teenage girl, or, I can't believe you shared this. Like your vulnerability really inspired me. Now I want to know what you think about this. And then they start opening up to me. So I think in these industries, so it's really hard to come by people that you could be so much yourself with. And then not only that, all of a sudden, these individuals that you're trying to reach that are usually not open to anybody, but they see how open you are, you give them courage to be open. And then it's the first time that they can do that. And they're like, finally a space where I could be myself also. And then automatically it's like a forever relationship. So, what I would say is share as much as you're willing to share about who you are with your industry, with the community that you're building. Because, yeah, I mean, I can say even projects that I've gotten and opportunities that I've gotten, and even when I was going actually through tough times, because business is like this, right? So, yes, I've had my success, but I can tell you up and down, up and down, up and down. And even today, after 7 years and all of the, let's say, accolades that we've accomplished as a company, I'm still learning, I'm still feeling. It's constant, right? You never stop learning. When you start, I think when you're dead is when you stop learning, right? Really. So I think when it comes to just like, in business, the more you share about yourself and the more that you could be vulnerable, even with your failures. I've had companies come to me and say, I know you're struggling right now. I heard your interview about this and I have this project and maybe I'm thinking I found a space where I could bring you into it because I want to help you during this time. And then once they give me that project, just person to person, human to human, them just wanting to help me as a person outside of my company, and then they see what I'm able to do through that help that they're giving me originally just because of that, then they're like, wow, this girl is really good. I'm going to give her a bigger project. And I really want to work with her because look at what she did. Because I was just helping her, but she gave me this. So I think it's just really important, to just like share as much of ourselves as we can. And again, I know it's a very scary place, but it really goes a long way. Um, so I'd love any questions in regard to personal brand or putting your story out there. And you could just unmic and talk. You don't have to type.
What you say is so true about personal branding. I've had my company now for about 13, maybe 15 years. And I remember when I first started, social media, the Facebook and stuff was really getting out. And I was working with a radio company, and they forced us to get a Facebook page and an Instagram because they said part of being in this business now, is you must have a social media. And I bucked it for the longest. I got it, but I didn't really utilize it, like I should. And then I started utilizing it with my theater company. And at first, I would get feedback from people like, well, every time I turn on the social media, I see your face. Or every time it's Julie Whitney Scott, everywhere, everywhere. And at first, because I am a type of person that it's really, even though I seem like I'm all this, that, and other, I'm very introverted. I prefer to be by myself. But you know, I also have the ability to be social. Social.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I tack in to be sociable when I need to be and be by myself when I want to be. But I I got a lot of flack in the beginning from people that just didn't understand branding,
Mhm.
and they would say, "You're always on social media. I see you, and you're everywhere. You're here, you're there, you're everywhere. Why are you always here, there, and everywhere?" And I would say, and this was like 10 years ago or something. I
Mhm.
was like, "Well, I'm branding myself." Well, what's branding? Because people didn't understand, because I was forced to understand what branding was
Yeah.
meant, because I started off in the radio business. I was forced to understand you will brand. People need to know who you are, because that helps them know who we are. Like what you were saying about, once they know who these people are, that brings you to, that's what makes people turn to our radio station, because they need to know, they like people.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And it's very it's been very effective for me for doing that branding on myself, on who Julie Whitney Scott is,
Mhm.
because it's helped my business. It's helped
Yeah.
my theater company. It helps my teaching. I work all over the city. I I'm I'm hired to teach theater here, there, and everywhere. I work in the city schools. I do 3 schools,
Amazing.
a week. Why? Because of Julie Whitney Scott. So I think that it is good for people to, even though you're introverted or you really don't care about, or really want to do that, to understand that you are what people support. They
Yeah,
support you,
it's
not
true.
your play. You know
Mm,
what I'm saying? Not
yeah,
this. They support you. So thank you for
it's
that. Because,
true.
as I get older and stuff, I'm starting to feel like I'm so sick of this,
Yeah,
because I've been doing it so long. But I also understand that if I stop it, my company stops growing.
yeah. Well, no, thank you so much for sharing that. And I have to say, I think that nowadays, especially after COVID, which then just escalated into everything else that we're dealing with in the world, which has been insane to say the very least. But I feel like now between, that and people really wanting to connect to anything, right? People feel very isolated in many different ways, but also because every industry is so saturated, right? There's so many people sometimes doing the same thing and trying to compete with one another. There's only one thing that no one can take away from you. It's who you are. That's that's only you. Like that's it. There's not going to be anybody else that is you. So I think and that's your superpower. So it's like looking at what are those qualities that make you you, that you are most proud of. We all have something inside of us that we're like, yeah, like I really love this about myself. I would like to get it out to the world. And then taking that and honing into what that message is to get that out. Because then once people know that about you, that's just you. It's like Julie Whitney Scott, like after you spoke, like, I just first, like, I loved everything you shared. But, now anytime I see your name, like, that's you. It's just you. No one else can be you. No matter what, they can work in radio, like, you're you. So it sounds very like, what is it? It sounds, how sometimes you say something and you're like, okay, everyone knows that like I'm me, you're you, like, this is something simple to know, but we don't think about it when it comes to like how important is it for people to know who you are. Um, so that's like a really, really, yeah, really important in all of this that we're talking about. Um, Ariel is
I have a
typing.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a
Oh
question.
no, go ahead, Lori.
Oh, I'm sorry, Adiel.
No, go ahead, go
What
ahead.
would you say if you had to tell us three things that were the most important about branding yourself? What would those three things be?
It's a good question. Okay. I would say the first thing was figuring out what I could be a thought leader in, the topics that I really knew enough about to promote myself to speak in different events, conferences, etc. So I took the subject of sustainability through technology because I really like just learned so much about that in what we were building. So I mean, and this was tough because I have a 6 and an 8-year-old now, but when I started the business, I had one breastfeeding and a 1.5-year-old running around. So it's kind of crazy to think about. But even with that, there were years that I was traveling 2, 3 times a month. It was very hard. The mom guilt is a real thing. But like I was just trying to get myself to speak in as many events as possible. And, so that people would just continue to see me, like what Julie Whitney Scott just said, just like repetition, repetition, repetition. Like, and then right away now, when people think sustainability technology, they're like, Jordana, we have this event. This is the topic. Do you want to speak? So that was number one. It's just finding what is that topic that I can really speak on. The second thing I would say is, so there's like, I would say there are 3 things that happened in my life that we can call it like pivotal moments or very like very hard moments that I've had to overcome. And I decided to really share those 3 stories, but not just share it like I've gone through this, but really go into detail of what those 3 traumas were. And I honed in on those very much because I wanted I wanted the community of women or men that could relate to those traumas that I overcame for them to feel like they had a home where they could also be a part of that. And that helped me a lot in like building this community that not only, obviously needs what I'm building for their business or for what they're doing, but they're also someone that can relate to me on a personal level. So that was number 2. And number 3, I would say that's a good question because I feel like those first 2 are like the biggest ones. But I'd say number 3 was just really, just being me. So what I mean by this is, so I've gone to events where everyone is in a black suit and tie or like very like business. Let's say like you go to a conference and everyone, even the women, are very like everyone, not the same, but they all have, they're very like business attire, like, and I'm someone who has always been very casual and also very, let's say, like bohemian. I like to be like in like flowy dresses, like it's just my persona. And even when I would go to events where, I knew the type of people that would be there and I knew that I was going to stand out like a sore thumb, I would still do it. And even like, funny that like, I mean, there were even moments, and I say this even being 44, my mother, who's still treats me like I'm 10 just because we have that relationship, but she would look at me and say, "You're going to go to an event wearing that, you're not going to be taken seriously." And I'm like, no, no. I'm like, if I don't go wearing this and I go wearing what people think I should wear, I'm not going to be able to be myself. And people are going to feel that and everything is going to go wrong. But if I step into a place being me, even if I'm going to stand out, I'm going to be the only one looking that way, that's who I am, and I'll be the best version of myself. And it always worked, because people, they appreciate that I never changed, or I've never been somebody just because I need to be that person to evolve in an industry or a career. I've always just been myself, and I'm like, the universe will take me to where I'm supposed to be. So I'm a big believer in just being yourself. So I'd say those are the 3 main things, if that makes sense.
Okay. I'm listening. I call myself. I missed 2 or didn't get it. What was the second one?
The second one was
Mhm.
finding 3 main things that happened in my life. Let's call it like
Okay.
traumas, like very hard things, and
Okay.
really going into detail with what they were, how I overcame them, and really
Okay.
sharing it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, Julie.
And and also in standing out as yourself, I think it's important too, especially when we're marketing and you're trying to bring different people in. I found myself a lot of times the only black person, the only woman, the only theater person. You know what I'm saying? In a group of all
Yeah.
musicians, or so I think it's also important that we are comfortable enough to go outside of our rim, especially if we're trying to bring in other people and outside of our immediate circle, our immediate pool, that we will also find ourselves and having to feel comfortable. And so, thank God for me that I'm very comfortable uh, as me, no matter where I am, even if
Yeah.
I'm the only person with that genre, look, uh, personality, race, whatever age,
Yeah.
because as I'm a senior now, I find myself sometimes the only senior in a group of younger people that are
Yeah.
30 and beyond, and having the guts to go ahead and put myself out there in there because I need young people to perform in my plays. I need young
Yeah.
people to teach. You know what I'm saying? So that's a good point you have to stand out as yourself, no matter where you may find yourself, no matter if it's how you look or how you're
Yeah.
dressed or who the people are that you are with, getting yourself and being comfortable and enough, especially like I said, if you're an introvert like I am, who just really ain't comfortable like that,
Yeah.
but have to say, okay, you got to do this, because your
Yeah.
company, you've got to do this. So those are really good points you're bringing out.
Thank
That's
you.
a
I
good
appreciate.
question, Lori.
Yeah, I like that too. Thank you. Ariel, you wanted to say something before?
Yeah, I think we were kind of talking a little bit about like I guess personal brand and like how it's tied to your personality or something a little bit. But I think for me, I've always struggled with, I feel like I kind of change a lot, so it's been hard for me to hone in on what that is. Do you have any, anything on that?
Yeah, like you mean changing your art or like what you feel or what you want to put out there, it change in what way?
Yeah, I guess like so I've had like a bunch of different logos, or I've had a bunch of, I feel like I've had a bunch of different styles to my art that I've changed over time. So I think that's contributed to honing in on what my personal brand could be, but maybe there's something there that I'm just not seeing.
Yeah. So question, when you change your, let's say, logo or what you're doing, do you inform your community of those changes and why you made those changes?
Not always, no. Haven't really done
Yeah.
a good job of that either.
Yeah. I think that that's really, so it's interesting you bring that up because so looking, looking at like me as Jordana outside of Fashion Innovation. So like when, when I was 24, I started a PR company and then I did events for like Interscope Records in LA. And then I went from that to um working in like not-for-profit things. Actually, funny enough, Lori, I used to in my late 20s, I would host events like pop-ups and I would pick a cause. So like one was like anti-bullying and I would have plus size models wearing like a nude bathing suit and people would write like words of encouragement on their body throughout the event. So like when you brought up what you did, like I did it through fashion. Thank you. But so like, just so throughout my journey and like building up to getting to Fashion Innovation, I always had different personas, right? And different things that I was doing, but somehow they all tied together, even if they were different. And what I always did is, on my, let's say LinkedIn, which I use a lot, but any social media platform, I would say I would not only like post something about the transition or the change, but I would also go as far as creating a video explaining to people what I was going through mentally, why the change, because then they follow you in that journey and they applaud every step that you take and they're excited to see what's the next, gonna look like. So I think that if you do that, then I think it's perfect, I think that that's what I would say with that based on experience.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of times if we just see, a change, but we don't know why it changed, and we wonder like and this is just human nature, right? You think,
Yeah.
did it work out? Why did it change? Did something happen? And the human mind can go like in, bonkers, especially those overthinkers. But if you already nip that with your story, then yeah, then you're good.
Yeah, sometimes too, I wonder if I even like need that stuff because everything is so pictures and videos now. I wonder if, logos are even necessary sometimes. So I don't know. I'm kind of struggling with
It's a good
that whole area.
question. The logo thing. It's a really good question, actually.
Yeah. And
Something I
or I
haven't
guess
thought about.
symbols. I should use symbol more than logo
Yeah.
because
Ah, that's a really good question. I have to think about it. No, because I guess it depends on the industry, right? But like
yeah.
I'm thinking there's so many tech companies that I mean this is tech, but still like I work with these companies that they have these elaborate logos, but no one really ever sees them because people just work with
Mhm.
them because of what they're providing, right? Um, so I don't know. That's now you got me something to think about. But I
Cool.
think yeah, but if you do have, I think videos and pictures go a really long way. I think if you can even, through the changes of like the logo or the brand or where you're going next, outside of explaining the why, maybe sometimes even finding, this is something I've done too. This is gonna like kind of touch on something else when it comes to collaborations, but let's say you're like changing or pivoting what you're doing and what you're doing is similar to what someone you want to collaborate or work with or have as a sponsor has done in the past in some type of way, then you say something like, okay, like this is why I'm changing. Like I've made it a change in this because mentally I was going through this, and then say like, you know, it kind of brings me back to something that inspired me in the past, and then you tag that company and what they did. If you could always find ways to bring something back that you're doing to someone that you want to collaborate with or work with, it's super interesting. People love it, you know. Just something else to think about that you could
Yeah,
use that
okay.
for that benefit.
Interesting.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think is it challenging to, if you do multiple things, like I do the dance, the productions, but then I also do like repurpose clothing to make different fashions and then repurposing items to make art, and trying to find a way to either connect them all into one brand, or should I try to figure ways to do them separate? Because they are different, but they're the same. They're all creative, but they're different versions of creativity.
I would say I'm super, by the way, I will say this first. I would love to get everyone's like information after this because I want to look, you guys all sound fascinating, by the way. So Lori, I would say because everything you do is on the creative side, like you said, if you can incorporate it into one package, it's
Okay.
amazing.
Okay.
And that package, honestly, if I had to like, you know, be your PR director, which is what I did in the past, I would say, like, you're the brand. You're the brand that brings all of these pieces together, you know, all of these moving parts that you're doing, but like it's you, right? And I think, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, after this conversation we've had today, I'm sold on you. Love everything you've mentioned, but I'm like, now I want to know even more, you know? So I would say like you're the brand, and then just like find a way to, and when you do structure it, like structure it in a way where it kind of like flows, right? So you go from like let's say the dance, no, actually you go from what I would do, like just you go from like the full production to then like the parts, right? So the dance, the clothing, like what, like you start with the big and then you like scale down to all of the parts that could be part of that big overall image, which is
Okay.
the not-for-profit, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's what I would
Awesome.
say.
Thank you.
Of course. This has been amazing. I mean, I'm still here for another 23 minutes. If you guys have other questions, or I'm not doing the math right. No, like there's whatever. I'm here. So 7. So I'm loving like getting to know all of you. Trying to think what else I can share. So, I mean, I could tell you guys, so Fashion Innovation was my company for 7 years. Build it up to where it is today. Like I mentioned, you know, and this is something else if you guys have this type of interest. So we worked with government. So we were hired by the government in Saudi Arabia, Panama City. We partnered with the mayor's office in Miami. So we've done a lot of government work. We've had to 1,500 speakers, like I mentioned, fashion technology CEOs, founders. We partnered with companies like MasterCard, Pinterest, so the corporate, but we also helped a lot of the emerging, I would say, like talent in putting themselves out there. Just like kind of going through my background. So you guys, I wrote a book that I published to humanize homelessness using the voices of fashion. So taking that cause and amplifying that, called It Can Be You, which is like a very dear project to me that I still want to do more with, and that's in the works. But so, you know, that's why when you guys have all of these passions and ideas, that's why I say, like, you know, there's so many parts and like passions that I'm always trying to figure out how do I put them together so that I could do it all, you know, do it all that makes sense to me, you know, and that brings values to others. So if you guys have any questions on any of those things, I'm happy to answer.
I just want to say this. I've known Lori a long time. She's
Uh-huh.
fabulous. She's modeled for me, just all kinds of stuff. She's fabulous. I like the question she asked about putting all the things together. Because even though I am a fashion designer, I draw, I do some things within fashion, jewelry, different things. And I'm really glad you asked. I didn't think about asking that because I need to do something like that too, kind of tie it all in together. 'Cause I get some people
Mhm.
sometimes tell me, you need to concentrate on one thing. Don't make jewelry, don't do this, just concentrate on one thing. But my heart and my mind and my spirit tell me, no, I don't want to do that. I like that, how you answered that for her. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think like, it's different if you said to me, I'm a designer and I'm focusing on becoming, a doctor, and I also want to fly planes, and can I put all of that together? I would be like, kind of tough. I mean, you could always, anything is possible, but like, when it comes to the creative world, like that's people, I think like the more you can show through like the many talents that you have in like creating all of these things and compiling it into like a package, and then it's good too, because then when you reach out to people you want to work with, they have so many different avenues to choose from, so it can like each thing can pertain to each person that becomes a part of your community. So yeah, so I'd say that that's total. I mean, yeah, I don't agree with people that say just do one thing, especially if you're doing many things that come together,
Thank you.
of course. Does anybody else have, I want to like I would love to give you guys, honestly, anything you guys need for me, like information, how I've done it, contacts. I'm literally like that person that I'm just like, I want to see like, everyone just, yeah, succeed. I think it's so exciting. So anything else that I can share? I know we've talked about cold emails. I know we've talked about creating a community. Creating a community, what I've learned is like there's people that they get frustrated because the whole world doesn't know who they are yet. And I think that's kind of silly. I don't think no one is meant to be for everyone, right? So it's like finding out not only who your community is, but not focusing so much on numbers, but rather giving that community the value just for being them. Like, for example, there's a question that people ask on podcasts where they say, would you rather have 1,000 super fans or 1 million followers on social? And for me, the answer is always 1,000 super fans, because those super fans are going to be like ride or die. They're going to be there as you grow. They're going to help you grow. They're going to tell other people about you. So I think when it comes to community, it's just really important to know who are you aiming with your message of what you do and why you do it, and them resonating with it. They can just help you grow so much. Even if you have 10 super fans, you can go a really long way with that. And then to find them, I always say like, just like look up um, other companies or other people that are doing similar things that you're doing, and just start doing like that research. And yeah, I would say that that's, just finding your community and like events and like people's pages that are similar to you, and just trying to figure out, how to attract them, but in a very like organic way, in a real way. Because people know when you're just aiming for like, clients just to make money, or like communities just to have them follow you, and people know when it's real. Um, I can also, I mean, I don't know, are any of you like moms of little kids, or are you any of you like juggle, Lori? Yes.
Well, he's not little anymore. He's long. He's 11.
Oh,
So his
11.
schedule, yes, his schedule is crazy, but I love every minute of it. So, yes, trying to juggle, that is a good question. Trying to juggle what you're trying to do as an artist, and then you have, a little person or husband and a husband that you're running around trying to do all that, and then still find energy to be creative.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can talk a little bit about that, if you would like. So funny enough, right away, 11, I have the number 11 tattooed on the back of my neck. It's a really good number. So
That's my favorite
11,
number.
is it?
Hmm.
Do you see the 1111? Is that like a,
All the time. And
uh,
no matter what I'm doing during the daytime, I see the time and I stop and I say a prayer, I have a thought. Literally at that
Same
moment,
thing.
I'll be driving and it'll be behind somebody that's 1111, like all the time, all the time. Yes.
So that for me, anytime someone says that number, it means you're on the right path. So keep going. Um,
Mine is 11:14. I see that one. I see that
11:14.
time a lot. Hmm.
Oh wow, that's
Ooh, we'll have to
interesting.
research the 14. Now I'm gonna have to find out what the
Yeah.
14.
Have you
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
looked it up to see what it is?
It just 11 and 7 pop up a lot because if you add
Yeah.
them, it's like the
Yeah,
7 or whatever. But it usually says that
interesting.
like something is coming. So if I see that number, then I know to like, you know,
Watch out.
brace myself or
Oh,
like,
oh,
it's like something good is gonna happen too.
That's
oh,
amazing.
awesome. That
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I love numbers and things like that. I would say for the kids, like, so mine are 6 and 8 now. And one thing that I found, so when I started everything, the business primarily, they were a year and a half and a newborn, which was like really tough. But I would say that now, which is still very tough because now, I mean, one, they're with me primarily, so it's just me and the two girls against the world. But they're amazing. They're like little, like they're gonna take over the world. I know it. But what I do with them is outside. So two things. One, because work does take us away from having time with them. So what I realize is not about how much time you have with them, but it's about how you spend that time. Kids, they don't know. You can be gone for a week, but if you come back for 2 days and you fully focus on them, shut off your phone, it's just all about you and them and create experiences. The week they forget about, the 2 days is what they'll remember. So that's one thing. Um, and then the second thing that I would say with the kids is I started involving them in everything. So as an example, I'll do something for work and they'll say, Mommy, but I don't want you to work. And then I say, do you know why mommy's working? And they say, why? And I say, because mommy's working on this technology that helps brands be sustainable, which means I'm making the world better so that when you have kids, you guys have clean air to breathe, blah, blah, blah. So then I tell them the whole story of sustainability. So now whenever I travel, instead of being upset, they say, oh, mommy's going to go save the world. Or if I like, so it's super cute, but it makes them feel like they're involved. Or if I have like a really big project that I'm about to close, I actually involve them in it. I'm like, guys, if mommy closes this deal, we can go shopping and you guys can buy whatever you want because we're going to make money and we're going to have this and it. So then I involve them. And so then it's cute because then like leading up to it, they come up to me almost every day and they're like, Mommy, did you get the big client? Did you sign the big client? Did you sign? So they're like, it becomes like, they're a part of it. So I think those two things is what I would say is like making them a part of the process, but they love it and they feel like, they get just as excited in your wins. And believe it or not, kids are almost like smarter than us in a lot of ways because whenever I don't get something and they ask me, instead of being upset about it, like I would be, they say, that's fine. You're gonna get something else. Or like there's so much more, easy to kind of like wash it off. And then you always have their hugs and kisses to make you feel better. But I would say those two things are really important is making them feel like they're a part of it and just telling them your purpose behind what you do. That way they know that you're not just going away because you want to be away from them, but you're doing it for like a bigger cause. And then it makes them also passionate about that cause. So the last thing I'll say is when I wrote the book, I took my daughters with me to give food to the homeless because the way that I got their stories in the book is I would give out food or whatever, socks, things like that. And I would ask them, if they could share with me their stories of how they wound up on the streets. And I would sit with them and we would have a conversation. So sometimes I would take my kids and they were very little and they would just be there while I was talking to these homeless individuals and getting their stories. And today, I can tell you that every time we see someone on the street, every time, my kids are like, Mommy, do you have money? And if I don't, they're like, Mommy, there's a McDonald's, let's go buy food. Like they will not let me pass anyone who needs something, which is amazing. So I think like, involving them in that type of way is beautiful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's good. Those were great.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I think honestly, the last thing I can say, and then if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer. I'm definitely going to put all of my like resources, like platforms, email systems, like ways to find people's email addresses. I'll even share with you guys some templates of like cold emails and like paragraphs that I've used. You guys can then take those and kind of like make it your own based on your industry. So I'm happy to share all of that with you guys. And then of course, like I mentioned, I'd love for you guys to find me on LinkedIn or any, for us to keep connected. I would really love that. But I would say the most important thing is, again, just remembering that I think honestly, I look at human beings as books. We all have a book in us. All of our stories are amazing. We all have a story that can be really interesting to the next person if told with honesty and passion. I think that, just really going into what you're doing every day, like fully believing in yourself, but just really like, almost going back to that like little kid inside of you, like when you're a little kid, you believe in everything and nothing can stop you. That's really what you have to do. And it sounds super maybe like cliche or like cheesy, but I don't know. I'm such a huge believer because of what I've been able to do with nothing. And like I said, it's not that it was easy all along. Like, and we don't have too much time to get into it, but I've lost everything and had to rebuild everything back up. So a year after starting Fashion Ovation, when I tell you I lost everything, I lost everything. I lost my house. I lost all of our belongings in the house, the kids' toys, everything. I had to leave everything because I got to a place where a year into building something I really believed in wasn't panning out. Money was going out, money wasn't coming in. But I believed until I was like at a dead stop. And I said, I have to lose everything and figure it out. And if I really believe in it, I'm going to come back to everything I lost. I'm going to get it back. And it was probably the hardest time in my life. But I can tell you that through 6 months of having lost everything and just every day waking up and going, I can do this. I believe in this. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. Finally rebuilt everything back up. And then once I did, then there was no stopping me for real. Because then I was like, I lost everything and now I had to rebuild it. Like no one's gonna stop me now. So I think it's just really going for it. And just yeah, and again, the no we all have. Just go for that yes, like we already have the no. Just really go for it. I mean, I can tell you too, and this is not, I believe in college, I believe in institution, but I never went to college. I literally finished high school and told my mom, I'm going to work with people. And she's like, you're crazy, pretty much. My mom said I'm crazy a lot. Now she tells me I'm proud of you all the time. But in the past, it was you're crazy. But I didn't go to college. I was like, just knew I wanted to work with people. I just knew I love people. Like to this day, if someone's like, why do you work in fashion? Because I love people. Why do you work? What, like everything for me stems to people. Like that's my love. Like however I can work with people and that's what I love. So it's just it's just I'm true testament, not going to college, starting with nothing, selling all my jewelry when I was in my early 20s to start my first PR company, to buy Velveeta cheese and bread, eat that every day and nights. Literally, like, no joke. I mean, the things that I went through to like just, build. And then eventually, like your story, sharing those stories starts to seep through and just people start to want to give you opportunities. And then once you get that first huge opportunity, that's like every business has that moment where you're like, this is the moment. This is the moment that if I do it well, it will take me to the next level. For me, that moment was the day that I got a call from the Princess of Saudi, who was the granddaughter of the King of Saudi Arabia, which was insane. She got on a Zoom call with me, and I literally was like, in my head, I'm like, I'm really talking to the princess. Like, it was surreal. To this day, I think about it. But like, when she's like, I want this project, write me a proposal. I want you to come to Saudi and build this event and bring global leaders to merge with the local, this whole project where I was like, this is crazy. But I was like, I'm going to do it. And I did it like with everything. And after that, it felt like so many doors open. So it's like, just keep going. And then once you get that huge moment, just go with all of who you are. Forget about who you're supposed to be. Forget about what the industry needs you to be. Go with who you are, 150,000%. And that's just going to be like magic. That's what I would say. Yeah. And anything else, guys?
Got about 5 minutes left, everybody.
Thank you so
Ready to
much.
go. I know
This
that.
has been
Ready to get busy.
absolutely fantastic. So
Thank you.
for sharing all
Yeah.
of your wisdom and your smile, all
Thank
that
you.
good stuff, your light and sharing your light. Just thank you. Thank you so much. Very
Thank you
interesting.
so much. You guys inspired me today. I'm like, honestly, listening to you guys, I'm just like, I'm so fueled to like,
Mhm.
the next like chapter of my life. It's all chapters, right? And we just keep evolving and getting to connect with incredible people like you guys. I'm like, I feel so honored, honestly. So this for me has been like a huge gift, and I really appreciate your time and your honesty and your openness. And genuinely, I mean this when I say it, I really want to connect with all of you offline individually and just like continue learning about your story and sharing mine. And we can like, yeah, who knows? Possibilities are endless, right?
Yes,
Sweet.
absolutely. Mhm.
So how do we do that? We're giving each other emails, or what are we
Yeah,
doing?
let me put,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put my email here. This is my personal email. I'll put it in the chat box.
Where's
Um,
that at? Okay, I see it.
all right.
Lori, I'm calling your phone, Lori.
I just sent it. So just I
Oh,
am
yeah, I see
and
it.
then
Okay.
full name at Gmail.
Yeah. I have everybody's email from the sign up too, so I can mass email everybody
Oh,
Okay,
whatever
you
she
get
sends me later. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll send him everything. My email, my LinkedIn. Even yeah, if you guys want to get on a phone call and like talk individually about, anything. I mean, yeah, it would be great. And you guys are all in Columbus, Ohio?
yes.
I think
I
most
don't
of
know
us,
about
yeah.
Chris. They kept popping in and out. I don't know Chris, but Chris is in and out. I don't know where he's from.
Where are you
Have to
from,
put me
Chris?
in a chat
Where are
box.
you,
Okay.
Chris, you want to tell us where you're from?
I'm from Miami.
Hey,
Everyone, I'm from Miami.
Nice.
From the
Maybe that's
South.
why he's smiling. It might be sun there. That's why he's had a smile.
Right.
Yeah. So Columbus, Ohio, by the way, I went once and it was amazing. Such a good place. I really want to go back. So it'd be really fun actually to go back and for all of us to get together and do like a dinner, girls' night out.
ooh, okay.
And
Yes.
Chris is welcome
Chris.
too, Chris and Chris.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's
That would be
awesome.
great.
And Danielle, of course.
No, I don't want to go now. You guys can have drinks. I'm cool.
He took it
No,
personal.
thank you all so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank
We're
you.
done. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Guys,
Bye.
nice to
Thank
meet
Appreciate you.
everyone. Talk soon.
Bye.
Thanks,
Yes.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.